radicals. Well, these cars equally, if you wherever you are around the circuit, I'm sure you've started to have them come into view somewhere. But they've also got quite a bit of aero dependency. They've got rear wings and front wings, and so at certain points on the circuit, they're going to be able to, particularly that Wilson hairpin, that second corner is really going to give a good opportunity to use the wind to help a move into braking, and hopefully, as we saw in that radical race, some of the drivers were really able to pull them off, and some accidentally maybe missing their braking points a little bit and causing an issue. But that's racing, and that's why we come here and watch, and what's been great so far, it's all been incredibly clean racing as well, and I expect exactly the same. These club leaders were very clean racing as they went into that hairpin. And one car to keep an eye on who got an absolute lightning start was the 65 Ian Crosby D. That car looks like also making another move as they head down into Agostini. So 65 Crosby is definitely one to keep an eye on, but it is that leader at number 7 who started from pole. Dickinson. He's just ahead, about a car and a half's length or so ahead of Jared Lester at the moment in the 68. Very closely followed again by Jonathan Hare in the number 8, and that 1, 2, 3. In fact, it looks like Hare is almost setting up for an attempt on second place as those cars head down onto the Bentley straight. So if you're in that section, you'll be able to see this, but it certainly looks like Jonathan Hare is very, very close. I'm not sure.
Now towards Palmer, this very long left-hander where you're battling the understeer. No problem, of course, for these downforce cars as they keep the car glued to the road. Just monitoring the gap towards the front, and Dickens has been able to bridge a gap over Jonathan Hare in second. Who we saw actually was very, very quick for that number 8 yesterday.
Yeah, he certainly was, and I think that's been helped by the fact that the 68 Leicester, I think, missed the chicane at front, and kind of had to take that exit road, which dropped him down into third. The other car to keep an eye on, he made up 2 places, and he was very, very close again behind the number 1 of Freeman. It's the 65 of Crosby. Got a great start, and that gap as they crossed the line was just 0.7 of a second, so that really is a battle to be keeping an eye on between the 65 and the number 1 car. So as we now cast our eyes over towards the Grundle section of the track and wait to see these cars coming down.
Of his ability before maybe the slightly newer car with a slightly better engine can bridge out on the straight, but the gap very, very close, only a few car lengths or so in towards Agostini. But as you get closer, again, it's not going to be a huge problem, but maybe a slight element of sort of dirty air and also sort of tunnel vision on the back of another car. You sort of find yourself losing that rhythm once you start getting a bit too close, and it's something that Jonathan Hare needs to be careful of and use the momentum that he's got 7/10 of a lap quicker just to sort of drive onto the back of Dickens and get through.
Yeah, he is. I mean, one thing that's going to give him a bit of comfort is looking at his mirrors. He's not going to be able to see much of the 68 car that he overtook earlier on in this race, and the fact that he's got that bit of comfort, he can keep focused. But the other thing he's going to have to keep a focus on is the time, because we're now under 10 minutes of this race. It's only a short sprint, so yeah, you're right, you've got to be careful of that tunnel vision, but you've also got to be wary of the time, and he was certainly a bit closer that time around, just 1.1 seconds behind the leader. But it's certainly a battle to very much keep an eye on. Another battle, as I say, to keep an eye on a little bit further down the order, 32. That one is certainly something to keep an eye on as they head down towards the Bentley straight now. That battle looks like it's hotting up, but our leaders are back with us across the line, and actually the number 7 of Steve Dickens looks like he's pulled out a bit more of a lead from Jonathan Hare,
because his lap himself was 0.8 of a second quicker than the lap previous, so he's clearly pushing, trying to extract the most out of the car. But yeah, Steve Dickens just sort of looked at the pressure, said not really, put his foot down, and found a little bit more in terms of the speed. So that's going to be a commanding lead, unless there's of course a later issue still possible with 8 minutes of this race to go. Looking at the other gaps we've got in the field, we've still got that battle for P3 and CSP on between Collier and Evans. That's going to be the 32 versus the 87. Keep an eye on that one. That's going to
just looks like an incredibly sorted car, but running in 4th place at the moment, and certainly, as you say, needs to make a bit of an inroads into the cars in front, because they are certainly the ones that are pulling away in the championship. A little bit further down, Leicester in the 66 is getting incredibly close to the number 1 of Freedom, so that's one to have a look at. And just if you're keeping an eye on your programme, the 74 car of Parks is one that has pulled into the paddock, unfortunately, so it looks like tasty by the time we get to the end of this race.
Yeah, it could be indeed. So Jared Leicester closing in, got off to an initially quite a decent start, and I thought he was going to be applying some pressure to Steve Dickens, but unfortunately not quite the case. Now maybe we've settled into this race, he's found his rhythm, got the tyres up to temperature, maybe found himself a little bit of pace that can allow him to close that gap. We've got 6 minutes left of this race, and we've got, what, 4 cars I think in contention for the CSP2 second place, just behind Begley.
Yeah, I think what didn't help the 68 Leicester was that off at Brundle in the first lap, where he had to kind of nip down the escape road and then jump back on the circuit, and I think that's where as those 2 cars make their way onto the Bentley straight at the moment, they're pulling away quite nicely from the 32 car, who is actually being put under a bit of pressure from Evans in the 87, but that battle for second looks like it could be hotting up quite nicely as those 2 cars come into the Brundle-Nelson section of the track. They are getting...
Time is of the essence, he needs to find a way through there. Now blitzing their way into Coram, now into Murray's as well, at the bottom of the hill. Now the number 8 accelerates its way towards turn number 1, but very closely pursued by the 68 machine. So it's the black and red, just in behind it as well you've got the green and yellow of the 68, looking to go for a move into the inside of turn number 1, darts very late and finds his way through. That's going to be second place overall, no change in class, but a nice move indeed. Very, very lately decided as well, that was on the edge.
Yeah, as those cars were coming towards it, didn't look like he was anywhere near close enough, but very brave we've got the number 60 of Hunter, which is being lapped now. Now, in a 15-minute race, you certainly wouldn't be expecting to meet lapped traffic, so it does look like the second and third place cars have just navigated him successfully, but it is, again, another one of those things that these drivers have to be aware of, and in such a short race, it isn't something you'd be expecting to Jared Leicester get away in the 68 at all. So wondering if there can be a charge in probably the last 2 laps that we're going to have here. The other thing to really keep an eye out for is a battle that's now ensuing for 4th place, because Collier in that 32 is looking to be caught. As I look towards Oggie's corner, that gap looked like it was less than 1.2 seconds, so that's definitely something, the battle between the 32 and the 87 as we head towards the last couple of laps of this race.
Yeah, 3 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock, and yeah, in terms of his lap times, about 3, well actually that last lap not great, maybe catching some lap traffic or something, in fact slower than Jared Leicester that last time by. The gap closed now to just 6 seconds. I think Jared Leicester might just run out of time in order to close the gap on Steve Dickens, even though right now he is running slightly quicker. So we've got this battle, the 32 still versus the 87, it's the all red 32 versus the white and green 87 just in behind. Look at that battle now running its way into turn number 1 and towards the Wilson hairpin at turn 2. That's a battle for class podium. Collier just able at the moment to hang on for that previous lap, a little bit quicker for Evans. About 3 attempts he's been able to close, get that gap back under a second.
It is under a second, 0.9 of a second, so certainly with what I predict to be about 2 laps left of this race, that is definitely the battle on track to see, because it does look like Jared Leicester has actually managed to get a little bit of breathing space. We are getting into more and more lapped traffic though. I can see our leader getting caught up with lap traffic, and you mentioned that battle for the lead. Is there an opportunity for Jared Leicester as the cars are getting into lap traffic? I think it's maybe a bit of wishful thinking, but certainly that battle looks ever so close as they come through Oggie's between the 32 and the 87, Collier and Evans, and they go onto the Bentley straight, but I'm wondering if Collier just has a bit more power, because it's the twisty stuff where Evans looks like he's getting very close, and then Collier pulls out a bit more.
Left to go. Is there anything Evans can do in terms, Collier can do in terms of counter attack, because the 87 has got that pace, and well, once he's been in front, he's been able to open up a gap by good sort of 2 seconds as they cross the line.
Yeah, I wonder if the 32 has got a problem, because Collier has backed right off, and that gap was huge. 3 seconds as they cross the line in what was less than a third of the lap he's managed to build, and Collier's lap time seems to have really dropped down to a 2:03. So his lap time that time around was 4 seconds slower than his previous lap. So I'm predicting there is actually a bit of an issue for the 32 car, and hopefully in terms of the points he can at least make it to the end of the the race and finish this race, because that's going to be the key thing on his mind. That battle for the lead, unfortunately, doesn't look like it's going to ensue, because it does look like Dickens, as he comes onto the Bentley straight, followed by Jared Lester in the 68. That gap has remained pretty constant, as has the gap to third place, Jonathan Hare in the number 8 car, having a cracking weekend. So we're looking forward to seeing our leaders to come across the line. So they'll be coming down through the bomb hole in Coram at the moment. In fact, as I say that, the leader comes into view for what will be the checkered flag, I would imagine, this time around.
Will be indeed, standing by waiting to see the number 7, the blue and the silver machine of Steve Dickens, championship leader coming into this round of Snetterton CSP1 class. Jared Lester able to halve the gap in the end to 2.6 seconds. Without that off earlier on in the race, we could well have had a really good fight for the lead. CSPAs go the way of Jonathan Hare, and P3 overall as well, with a pretty decent race display from him. Then comes one class, and then the 87 of Evans was able to tip him right at the death of it. He did a fantastic job, a really good move, capitalising on the issues. Unfortunately for the 32, which definitely has suffered the last couple of laps, that gap opened up to an irreparable margin. His best lap time of 1:59.9, his last lap time of 2:09.4, so 10 seconds off the pace is not a problem with his talent, it's a problem with his car, you would assume, and in the end had to settle for what was going to be 4th place in class at the end. Rival of Steve Dickens.
Yeah, he was actually lucky because Adrian Lester in the 66 almost overtook him on the line there. So yeah, you're right, there must be an issue with that car, because to drop that much time in the last 2 laps was certainly not something we were expecting with Collier in the 32. It's going to hurt. That would have been another CSP1 car in front of him. So yeah, Adrian Lester in the 66 car finishing second. Just rounding off the finishers, Will Freeman in the number 1 car, the CSP2 winner. He finished 7th overall, followed by Crombie in the 65, who got that lightning start. That was great. Great to see. If he's got any onboard footage of that, he'll certainly be showing friends down the pub that footage, I'm sure. The number 9 car finishing up. Sorry.